So this morning I will be covering two topics. All right, just give me a moment. I need to. All right, okay. Before I share my slide, All right. So for today's session, for this morning session, I will be covering two topics. Yeah, just before the morning break, the expansion scope. I believe most of you are from the existing registered person, but I believe there are also some from the new members, new registrant of SST because of the expansion scope. We observe 5 industries to be as a prescribed taxable services in the year of 2025, and I am welcoming you all to SST to be SST members. Thank you so much for becoming the members, our extended family members. Yeah. Okay. So. I will share my screen. Hold on, just give me a moment. Okay, so I believe you guys can see my slide. Yeah. All right. Okay, so this morning, latest development on service tax. So without further delay, we just continue with our sessions. All right, the agenda for today, I will be touch on these 4 important topics: the expansion scope, the latest update, tax rate, and the transitional rules that we have, especially to those a new registrant for SST, and also because you need to know what are the transitional rules that we have, in order for you for the spending services, especially whether it is chargeable to service tax or not. And for your information, I believe the Secretariat has already shared with you the slides, but please accept my apology. I have added few slides, especially for the introduction part, because I believe I need to cover some of the introduction of service tax in order for you to have a clear picture of what we have, especially the infrastructure that we have for service tax 2.0. All right, so basically this is the history of service tax. We have started the service tax in 1975, for almost 40 years before we introduced GST in 2015. Similar concept that we adopt for SST 2.0, 2018, and SST 1975. We are using the positive list. Way back in 75 also we are using the positive list, whatever that we have stated in the first schedule are the taxable services. So similar to SST 2.0, SST in the year of 2018, we are also publishing the positive list. So whatever that has been listed as a prescribed taxable services, those are the taxable one. So other than that means it is not a taxable services. So you provision in order for you for the provisions of that particular taxable services will not be triggered by service tax. All right. 2015 we introduced GST, but not for so long. Due to the not readiness of the industry of the citizens of Malaysia. We as a whole are not ready for GST. So we reintroduced SST in 2018 by using a hybrid version. We are actually using the concept of 1975, but we have injected a few versions of GST to be part of SST 2.0. So 1st September 2019, this is where we started our SST 2.0 up until now. Up until now, we are still with SST. In the year of 2019, under the SST regime, we introduced imported taxable services. So this is very, very important. I believe those who are registered with customs under whether it is under sales tax or service tax, then we have a brief picture of what is imported taxable services. But for those who is not a registered person under this with customs, they wouldn't know that they are actually accountable to pay and account this service tax under the imported taxable services, especially to those the retailers, the traders. When they are acquiring the taxable services from someone outside Malaysia, they are actually liable to pay service tax. All right, in the year of 2020, 1st January 2020, this is where we started our MyStart, service tax on digital services. This is where this is to get those foreign service provider. They are located outside Malaysia. They do not have any establishment in Malaysia, but they provide digital services to Malaysian consumers. So therefore, they need to be part of RMCD members as a registered person, and they have to charge service tax for the provisions of digital services only. Yeah, only on digital services. Other than that, it will be under imported taxable services. Okay. All right. Okay, this is the legislation that we have. Obviously, we have the Service Tax Act. Yeah, the Act. All right, this Act meant for the provisions of the Act, the powers that have under the Minister power, DG power, the penalty, the compound. What are the general offences that you, if you are committed to that particular offences, you'll be subjected to persecution, to general penalty, compound, and so on. All right, so next we have the service tax regulation. This is where all the prescribed taxable services has been listed under the first schedule of service tax regulation. The details of an invoices, the details of credit note and debit note is all stated in the regulations. Apart from regulations, we also have the service tax orders. Yeah, this is where provisions to actually to impose service tax rate. Yeah, service tax rate. So under the power of minister, under the Act, minister has the power to impose service tax rate, but in the service tax order, then only we can state it what are the tax rate for that particular services. So in the year of 2025, we have amended the service tax order actually to recap on last year revisions of service tax rate. Yeah, so last year in the month of March, we increased the tax rate for the first time ever since from the very beginning of the implementation of service tax. Last year, 2024, is the first time we increased the tax rate from 6% to 8%. Yeah, so we have an amendment that we have made into this service tax order. Also on the service tax impositions of tax in special areas. So for your information, under the service tax legislations, we have a special provisions towards the special area and designated area. So don't worry, I will be covering on this special area and designated area later. Yeah, and also the order for persons exempted from payment of tax. So unlike sales tax in Sales Tax Act, under the sales tax legislations, you have Schedule A, B, and C. Yeah, this is meant for the exemption, person to be exempted, goods to be exempted, and so on. But for service tax, there's only one place for you to refer to, which is the persons exempted from payment of tax order. In short, we call it PEFPOT. Yeah, so this PEFPOT order also has been amended recently and effective 1st July due to the more exemptions are coming to the registrant. So you may refer to these orders for your further informations. Okay, so I believe all these legislations are very important. Yeah, for you to refer to. You do not have to remember or to memorize everything, but you know where to look for whenever you need that kind of information. So all these legislations, you can find it in our portal, my SST portal. All right. Okay, the last one that I want to share with you is the service tax policy. So these service tax policy are not gazetted orders, are not gazetted document, but it is actually under the section 34(3), yeah, whereby minister has the power to give tax exemption. So usually minister, if they wanted to give an exemption to the industry, a blanket exemption, for example, so usually they will come up with a service tax policy letter to customs, RMCD, and that particular letter is obviously private and confidential, so that's why we translated it out into service tax policy. So this year around, we have already issued out 5 service tax policy in the year of 2025. Last year, year 2024, we issued out, if I'm not mistaken, 8 service tax policy. Yeah, so that policy are very important. There are also policies in the year of 2020 that are still valid up until now, which you can enjoy the exemption that have been provided by the minister to the registrant. Yeah. All right, so this is where it all started under Section 7 of Service Tax Act 2018. So in short, we call it STA. So this Service Tax Act under Section 7 said that provisions of taxable services in Malaysia by a registered person is subject to service tax. So in order for you to charge your client service tax, first you must be a registered person. Being a registered person means you have your SST number. It doesn't mean that when you submitted your application to become a registered person, your registration application, you immediately charge your client. No, that's not what it means. Yeah, you have to submit your applications, wait for an approval. Usually customer will issue out an approval letter. Yeah, so based on that letter, you have your SST number. So with that SST number, only you can charge your client. Yeah, so that SST number also to be published at your invoices when you issue out to your client on your provisions of taxable services. Okay, please bear in mind, it is also stated that the provisions of taxable services must be in Malaysia, provided in Malaysia. So when you provide the taxable services in Malaysia by a registered person, you have your SST number, you have to charge service tax. Yeah. In the case that you do not want to charge your client, then you have to pay that service tax to custom. Okay. So under section 7B talks about imported taxable service. So any acquisitions of imported taxable services in Malaysia will then be subject to service tax following the tax rate. So if you are acquiring IT services from foreign service provider, so you have to self-pay 8% service tax. Okay, so that's what it means, yeah. All right, this is the value of tax under Section 9, yeah? Section 9 of Service Tax Act, value of tax. So what are the actual value? So what are the value, what are the price that you need to charge your client? Yeah? Based on what price you charge your client, 6 or 8%. So it is based on actual value. So whatever value that is stated in the invoice is subject to service tax. You times 6 or 8%. Yeah. So for imported services, also the same thing. In order for you, the value that you receive from the invoice from the foreign service provider, okay, the total invoice, please do not deduct the withholding tax. Yeah? It must be inclusive of withholding tax, because withholding tax is actually another thing governed by inland revenue. So that withholding tax is actually a responsibility of the foreign service provider to pay to inland revenue, right? So yes, your value of imported services must be the whole value of the invoice, total invoice. So similar goes to the coins and token paid to the machine. This is for betting and gaming. So when during the collections of these tokens and coins, yeah, so that is the actual value that you have to times that you have to charge service tax, basically. All right. So under regulations, Section 9 also, value of service tax. Section 9 of Service Tax Act, we also talks about the free services. So please take note, there is no free services for service tax. Yeah, if you are providing that services for free, you have to account service tax based on the normal value of your ordinary businesses. So for example, for this period of time, you are actually providing for free, but actually you are selling it at a certain value. So you have to account service tax based on that certain value. So that's what Sections 9 talk about the free services. Okay. All right. Rate of tax. So under Section 10, it gives powers for two ministers to impose to determine what are the tax rate to be imposed on the provision of taxable services in Malaysia. So based on under this order, Service Tax Rate of Tax Amendment Order 2024, we have stated that few services under the first schedule, actually. Under the first schedule, they are the long list of services. If I'm not mistaken, 13 services carries maintaining the old rate is 6%. The rest are the one that has not been published under the first schedule, means it is at the rate of 8%. Okay. So we also have a specific rate, which is RM25 per card per year. This is for credit card and charge card. And the rest are 8%, yeah, 6, 8, and RM25 per card and per year. Okay, so I've seen the numbers of chatting has been increased. So okay, for your information, we have a huge numbers of participants today. So I am really taking this opportunity to let you know that I'm going to cover the basic expansion scoping of imposition of tax, yeah, for service tax. So please wait until I presented that particular slide, then only you ask questions, right? If not, I'm going to answer multiple questions, redundant questions, and I believe I may be covered that particular topics in my sessions, in my slides. All right. Okay, never mind. Let us just continue. Section 11. Section 11 talks about the service tax due, yeah, when the tax is due and payable. So basically, by default, yeah, especially to the newcomers, to the new registrant, by default, if you don't do anything, your service tax due is when payment is received. That is by default, okay? But in the case that you wanted to be to account your service tax based on the accrual basis, based on the invoice date, then you have to apply to custom to this address. So I am publishing my division's address in Putrajaya. This is the headquarters address, the policy division's headquarters. So you have to apply to this address. Then we are going to reply whether it is approved or not. So once we reply and it is approved, you have no other option but to start using the new method. So in the case that you apply for accrual basis, invoice basis, then from that particular date, you have to start account and pay service tax based on the invoice basis. But in the case that you did not do anything, you just register yourself and you just continue submitting your SST 02, means you are under payment basis. So what is payment basis? Basically, when you provide taxable services to your client, and your client and you usually company will have a credit term, right? You have 30 days, 90 days, 120 days. It totally depends on the businesses. That is beyond custom control. So based on that credit term, then only you receive payment from your client. So upon receive the payment, then only you make payments to RMCD and declare that particular value. So don't worry so much on these declarations. Puan Zuraida will be covering this on her on the last topic for today under the declarations. All right. So I just wanted to let you know that under Section 11, your payment, the service tax is due when payment is received, and you have the option to change it if you think it is necessary. Okay. All right. This is also a very important topics, very important section. Especially to the new registered person, liability to be registered under Section 12. So this is to determine when is your liability to be to apply your registrations. So under Section 12, it talks about the provisions of taxable services when you are providing taxable services, and that services exceeds the prescribed threshold, then you are mandatory to be registered. So, for example, these provisions of turnover is to be calculated based on 12 cumulative months, not your following your calendar year, not following your financial year and so on, but for cumulative of 12 months. So if you are monitoring your sales and if it exceeds certain prescribed threshold, for example, you exceed the threshold in the month of June, then July is the month for you to submit your application. Registration application. So you have 1 month to submit your application, and what Section 13 says that under mandatory registration, once we receive your application, registration application in that particular month, your effective date will be on the first day of the following month. So in this example, you exceed the threshold in the month of June, July you apply for registration, and 1st August will be your first date of effective becoming a taxable person. So any provisions of taxable services starting 1st August onwards will be subject to service tax, right? Okay, under Section 14. Section 14 allow those who wanted to voluntarily register themselves under this Act. Okay, so it means you are not exceeding the threshold, you have not exceeded the threshold, the prescribed threshold, but you are voluntarily wanted to be registered as a tax collector on behalf of government. Perhaps maybe you wanted to enjoy some facilities. So that's why you voluntarily register yourself. So similar concept, when you apply for registrations in the month of July, your effective date will be on the first day of the following month, depending on the approval letter. So usually when you submit your applications, you have your email address, right? So based on that email address, we will email to you on the status and also for this approval letters. And also you can also download your approval letter in my SST account once you become a registered person. Okay. So this is the time frame. Okay, for those for the new taxable services. Okay, for the new taxable service, it is quite different from sections 12 for existing taxable services. For example, rental is a new taxable services that has been prescribed as taxable services starting 1st July. So for rental, we do not have historical method because for purpose of service tax, when rental becoming a taxable services, prescribed taxable services, it means we do not have history for that particular services. It is newly introduced taxable services in SST. So therefore, there's no history record. So the only option that you have is future method. So how do you calculate your future method? If you have entered into an agreement, so you can use that agreement. But another method to calculate your future method is by calculating the threshold times 12. Yeah, you predict for 12 months. So when you submit, when you are going to achieve your threshold, so based on that particular information, then you apply your application, your registration applications. So in the case that for this example, in the month of July you exceed the threshold. So in the month of August you apply for registration application. Then 1st of September will be your effective registration date. Okay, so starting this date, 1st September onwards, any provisions of taxable services will be subject to service tax. And for your information, in your approval letter, once you become a registered person, custom will issue out an approval letter. So in that approval letter, you have your SST number one. Next, you have your when is the first, what is your taxable period? So under SST regime, we have bi-monthly, yeah. So every 2 months. So when is the first taxable period that you need to submit and pay your service tax? All right. And last but not least, you have the details of the controlling station. So that is very important. Yeah, in the approval letter, it stated your controlling station. So if you have any further information, if you have any further queries, or if you have any submission or written adjustment that you need to make, or anything that you need to change in your account, so this controlling station is actually monitoring your file. So you have to go to your controlling station. But in the case that you wanted to have policy decisions, yeah, you are not clear whether this is taxable or not. How do you determine your taxable your tax treatment? Then you can go to any controlling station. That one is no problem. You can even go to customs Putrajaya, our headquarters, to ask questions. That is okay. But anything that relates to the file, your company file, yeah, transaction of SST, then you need to refer to your controlling station. All right, Section 21. Section 21 talks about invoices. Any registered person, yeah, not taxable person, any registered person shall issue an invoice within 1 year from the date of the taxable service was provided. Okay, containing the prescribed particulars as stated under Regulation 10. So this is an example that what Regulation 10 has been prescribed. First, you must have the details of the service provider, the name, the address, the SST number. Yeah. Next, you have your serial number. You have the date, the details of the client, who is your client. Yeah, and the details of provisions of taxable services, and if there is a discount offered, price before discount, price before SST value, and total price payable. Okay, so all these are prescribed. All right. Okay, everyone. Really sorry for the technical issues. Yeah, sometimes when you deal with this kind of networking internet, so this is unavoidable. All right. So we just continue. So there's a comment asking about speaker. Can you please slow down a little bit? Okay, we hear you. Okay, don't worry. Okay, I'm slowing down my pace. Okay, when you go for a marathon, my pace is actually no lah, just kidding. Okay, all right. For invoices under section 21, yeah, we shall continue with this slide on section 21. A responsibility of a registered person to issue an invoice. So it is a must for you to issue an invoice when you provide taxable services to the client. Yeah. So under this section 21 says that this prescribed of regulations under regulation 10. So all these prescribed details that you must have as stated in the regulation 10. In the case that you want to have one of it, or not to mention a few items as per the regulation 10, you have to apply to customs, apply to RMCD, to the headquarters, the policy divisions, yeah, Putrajaya. So let's move on to section 23. Section 23 about credit note and debit note. So this is a very common thing for a businesses to have, yeah. So sometimes when you already issue our invoice, you are trying your very best not to. Once you already confirm the value, the time, the details of the prescribed taxable services, but unfortunately, there is still a return or cancellations or adjustment in the value. Some agreement has you need to add on a new ancillary services to that particular services and so on. So any adjustment in the case of value for your pre-issued invoice, you can issue out credit or debit note. Yeah. So but under this section 23 says that any adjustment in the conduct of business, and it reflects with the value of taxable services, service tax itself. Yeah, SST declared and paid allowed to make adjustment, deduction in return for declarations. Okay, shall contain the following particulars as stated in Regulation 11. So Regulation 10, Service Tax Regulation 2018 talks about the content of an invoice, but Regulation 11 talks about the content of credit note and debit note. So obviously you must have this credit note and debit note term, yeah, stated in that particular document. The details of the service provider, the details of credit note, the invoice number, the credit note number, the date, the type of items, yeah, the details, the clients, and so on. So all this has been prescribed under the Regulation 11, yeah. So being a taxable person, you have to comply with all this legislation. So up until now, I still receive a question saying that, I am a voluntary registration under Section 14. I already received my SST number, but I'm not going to charge my client because I have not reached the threshold. So that is a very wrong concept. Once you become a registered person, you have your SST number. You have to follow to all the rules and regulations that has been set in the Service Tax Act 2018. So you have to charge because you're already a tax registered person. You provide taxable services in Malaysia, so you have to charge. Okay. The determinations of voluntary and mandatory registrations is only upon registrations. Yeah, only upon registration. But once you complete that stage, you receive your SST number. Yeah, then you are a normal person to customs already. So you have to oblige to all the rules and regulations that has been set. Okay, so under Section 25, Section 25 talks about the taxable period. So under service tax legislations, it is bi-monthly. It is not like GST. Those days we have quarterly. Yeah, but for SST, we are capped at 2 months. Every 2 months you have to submit your return. You make a declaration and also make a payment. So within 30 days, yeah. For example, your taxable period is on July and August. So within 1st until 30th September is the month for you to submit your declarations and also to make payment before 30th September. So in the case that you submit declaration 30th September, but you make payment on first day of October, then penalty 10% will be imposed. All right. Okay, furnishing return and payment under Section 26. This is a requirement for a registered person to submit and make payment, yeah, under Section 26, under the prescribed return by using SST02, okay? Not later than the last day of the following month, end of the taxable period, pay the service tax, shall furnish whether or not service tax is paid. So in order, as I mentioned earlier, yeah, under Section 11, you account service tax based on payment is received. So for example, for that particular taxable period, you did not receive any payment for the provisions of taxable services for that particular 2 months. Therefore, you need to submit nil return to customs. Okay, you still have to submit and furnish your SST02 by declaring nil return. So this is also will be covered by Puan Zuraida in the afternoon. Don't worry so much about this. All right. Section 26A talks about the provisions for persons other than taxable person, means non-registrant of service tax. So non-registrant of service tax under Section 26A is required to furnish declaration and make payment for imported taxable services. So that's why I said this is very important, because those who are non-registrant with customs, are not a registrant under service tax, they wouldn't know what are the impositions that we have, what are the taxable services, what are the requirements, the legislations, the rules and legislation that we have under the Service Tax Act 2018. So you may share this knowledge with your friends, in the case that your friend has acquired taxable services from a foreign service provider for furtherance of business in Malaysia, and they have to pay service tax. This is to create a fair level playing field. When you acquire IT services from local service provider, they charge you service tax, right? So when, same thing, same concept. When you acquire IT services from foreign service provider outside Malaysia, they cannot charge you because they are not a registered person, but you yourself have to account and pay service tax 8% based on the value stated in the invoice. So that is what imported taxable services provisions talks about. Yeah. And for other than taxable person other than taxable TP, non-registered, your declaration is based on monthly whenever you acquire taxable services. For example, you acquire taxable services in July, then you declare in the month of August. So in the month of August, you did not acquire any taxable service up until December 2025. You did not acquire any taxable services. So therefore, you do not have to submit any declaration to customs. All right. This is also will be covered by Puan Zuraida. Don't worry. All right. Okay. This is just a brief introduction of what SST legislation that we have. So what are the legislation for service tax? Basically, the fundamentals that you need to understand about for service tax. So those are the slides that I have added up because I realized I think I need to give introduction so that you understand a little bit on the service tax before we go to the expansion scope. All right, so the next subtopic that we'll be covering this morning is on the expansion of scope. I believe most of you are here because of this. Yeah. So in this slide, you can see the very long list of amendment list. Yeah, we have for regulations for service tax regulation, because I said that in the service tax regulation, this is where we keep on broadening the scope. We keep on adding the new taxable services into the schedule. Yeah, the first schedule. So under the first schedule, we have prior to this year 2025. Last year we have only 10 groups. Yeah, for this year around we have added on another 3 more groups. Now altogether we have 13 groups. Yeah. Okay. Last year was a big year for customs because we increased the tax rate from 6 to 8. So it impacted on the registering, and also we broadened the scope to logistic services. So we know that logistic, not only delivery but the logistic services is taxable. It consists of warehousing, ports, terminal transportations, and so on. So all these logistics are taxable. And also we broaden the scope of maintenance and repair. So those days, maintenance and repair are not taxable services. Only the preventive maintenance is taxable. But starting 1st March 2024, preventive, any kind of repair and maintenance are taxable. All right. So this year, another big wave are coming. Okay, already coming. In the 1st July 2025, this is where all the prescribed taxable services, the 5 new industries, has become taxable services under the first schedule of service tax regulation under the amendment of service tax regulation 2025. Yeah. So basically, this is the first schedule of service tax regulation. So I'm not going through every single item, because if I go through every single item, who are the taxable person, what are the taxable services, what are the threshold, the prescribed threshold for each category for each group of taxable services, it will take half a day. Okay, at least 2 hours. Therefore, no, I'm not going to cover the taxable services because this is another topic. It cannot be covered in just 2 hours because I have few other topics to cover under this session. All right, but I need you to understand that this is the list of taxable services that we have in place at the moment. Yeah, first we have the accommodation, we have food beverages. For your information, F&B, food beverages, is the highest tax collection for service tax in Malaysia. It means Malaysian people, we love to eat. Okay. All right. Next we have Group C. This is for the nightclubs, dance hall, cabaret, karaoke center. So karaoke is also a new taxable services last year that was introduced together with logistics. We have the wellness center, massage parlor, public houses and beer houses. This is under category of Group C. Yeah. Next, we have a private club. So any entrance to a private club, the subscriptions is taxable. Yeah. The golf club and golf driving range, the betting and gaming professionals. So under these professionals, we have another 13 category of taxable persons. So please take note that this Group G are very special to this service tax, because Group G, that you can enjoy the group relief facility. So provisions of taxable services within the group can be relief. It is not subject to service tax. All right. Also, B2B, a registered person, taxable person under B2B can enjoy this B2B exemptions. Yeah. Taxable registered person under Group G can enjoy B2B exemption. So, for your information, so what is B2B? I will be covering on exemption just after our morning break. So don't worry. All right. Okay, next we have Group H. So Group H, prior to 1st July, we name it as credit card and charge card. And we have only one item under Group H. But now, starting 1st July onwards, we rename the group as Group Finance. Yeah, Group Finance. And we have total 4 categories in that particular Group Finance. So we are going to take a look on Group Finance later, because Group Finance is a newly prescribed taxable services. We have add on 2 new taxable services in Group Finance, Group H. Yeah. All right, let's move on to Group I. Group I, we have other service providers. This is also another 13 categories of taxable person. So similar to Group G, professional just now, we have 13. In Group G, we have another 13 in Group I. So, but the difference between G and I is that G, you have to combine all the threshold. So in the case that we have IT in Group G, we have training in Group G, we have management in Group G. So you have to combine all these 3 taxable services for you to reach to calculate the threshold of prescribed threshold 500,000 for cumulative of 12 months. So that's the difference. But in Group I, you calculate the threshold individually. So each category under Group I, you calculate threshold individually depending on the prescribed threshold that has been stated in the column 3 of Group I. Okay. So in the Group I also, we add on another 3 new taxable person. Yeah, before that was 10, then we have add on another 3 that falls under the category of healthcare services. So all the healthcare services, the TCM, and also the allied health falls under Group I in separate on separate items. Yeah, item 14, 15, and 16. All right, Group J. So Group J, logistics, we have a few categories of taxable person in Group J. There are 2. One is logistic and one is customs agent. We have also rental and lease. So rental and lease also was a new group, a new taxable services. All right. So I said that we have 5 additional new industries as a prescribed taxable services in the year of 2025. They are finance, healthcare services, rental and lease, construction work, and education. So all these are the new taxable services that has been observed under the expansion of scope 2025. Yeah. All right, let's move on to the finance. So since finance is the first one, Group H, so we go to finance first. So this is how it looks like in the first schedule of service tax regulations. Yeah, we have column 1, column 2, and column 3. So please don't jump into column 2 to obviously look on the taxable services, but understand who is the taxable person first. Yeah, this is where you learn your your alphabeticals in schools, right? Your numerics learning in school, you start with number 1, not number 3. 1, 2, 3, right? So you have to look at column 1 first. So column 1 talks about the taxable person. So please understand who is the taxable person before you can jump into column 2. So once you understand that it falls under this column 1, those are the taxable person that is required to be registered with customs. Since they are providing taxable services, then only you look into column 2. So you know already you are the persons that is under the Central Bank of Malaysia, and then only you look at taxable services. So what are the taxable services? When you provide, you have to check service tax. So that's what it means, yeah. And also to calculate the threshold of taxable services. So based on the list in column 2, you calculate your threshold based on whatever that has been stated in column 2. Alright, there's a typo here under column 3 for the value of threshold. This is not 100,000, this is 1 million, yeah. I left out one more zero. Please forgive my typo. So this is actually 1 million, just recently updated, yeah. And effective on 1st July as well. Alright, column 3 talks about the total value of taxable services. So column 3, total value at 1 million, and total value of taxable services. Taxable services refer to column 2. That's how you read this the table. So for your information, every group, yeah, every taxable group from A up until M, they have their own table. Alright? And another thing that I need to emphasize here, if you wanted to give an exclusion, okay, as I mentioned earlier, please understand who is the taxable person first, yeah. But then, if there is an exclusion, we said that any person who is regulated by the Central Bank of Malaysia is the taxable person. Exclude. If there is an exclusion, it will be immediately stated in the column 1 itself. Alright, for exclusion. So please note that for service tax, you need to understand these two items, these two terms, yeah. One is exclusion and another one is exemption. So exclusions mean out of the scope. Alright, so whatever exclusion that we want to provide, it will be stated here. If we want to provide exclusion for taxable person, we state in the column 1. And if you wanted to exclude certain services, then we will exclude in column 2. We will immediately state it in column 2. Alright? For example, like column 2 here, provisions of financial services charged for fees, commission or similar payment, excluding interest-based payment for credit facilities. So those are the exclusion that the Minister of Finance wanted to give for that particular services, industries. Alright? Okay. But for exemption you cannot find it here. Exemption, as I mentioned earlier, you have to find it in the passport order. Person exempted from payment of tax order, or also via the service tax policy. Yeah, because under section 34.3, the minister has the power to give tax exemption on any tax value. Okay. All right. Another tips for this term, yeah, exclusion totally out of the picture, so you don't have to bother, it is not subject to service tax, okay, no problem. But for exemption, so since exemption is actually a taxable services, but the minister has provided an exemption, tax exemption, so you have to calculate that value into your threshold calculation, okay, in order for you to determine that your liability to be registered, and also this value of exemption need to be declared in your SST 02A. Sorry, SST 02 for registrant, right? SST 02, your return, your submission. So under column 18C. So this is don't worry, our Pazurada will touch on this. Yeah. So those are the terms that you need to understand: exclusion and exemption. Exemption is taxable, you have to declare in your SST 02. Exclusion totally out of the scope, it is not subject to service tax. Alright, so for this finance, as I mentioned earlier, we have 3 types of tax rate, right? RM25 per card per year for credit card and charge card. We have 6% and we have 8%. So for finance, the tax rate for finance services is at the rate of 8%. Alright. So this is the taxable person under item 3 and 4. For your information, group H, item 1 is credit card and charge card. Item 2 for insurance. Item 3 is for person who is regulated. This is the new expansion scope for the provisions of financial services that is charged for fees and commissions or similar payments. So financial fee base. When we talk about financial fee base, any financial services that imposes a fee, impose a commissions or similar terms that use administrative charges and so on. So all these fees, commissions, payments or similar payments are taxable now, starting 1st July onwards. All right. So there are two categories of taxable person. One is regulated. The second one, item 4, is non-regulated. So person who is regulated under Central Bank of Malaysia, Securities Commission of Malaysia, SC, Labuan Financial Services Authority. So those financial institution that is under this person, under this regulation, regulated by this three category of person, is a taxable person under item 3. Okay, this is very important for you to determine you fall under which category, because during your application you have to choose. Yeah, you have to choose type of taxable services that you fall into. All right. And item 1, a person's excluding in item 3. So whatever that is not being governed under item 3 will then be under item 4 as non-regulated financial institutions lah, basically. All right. So provisions of the following financial services charged for fees, commissions or similar payments such as factoring, financial leasing, trade financing, credit facility, and Sharia compliant financing, such as this BNPL, buy now pay later. So buy now pay later is now taxable. So starting today onwards, if you wanted to choose this BNPL, please calculate wisely. Yeah. All right. So this is an example of financial services provided by this regulated person. Regulated providers falls under item 3. Yeah, item 3 just now. Regulated, yeah, under the Central Bank, under this Labuan Act and Financial Services Act and so on. Okay, so all these are the Act, financial services regulated under the following Act. We have the Financial Services Act, FSA. We have Islamic Financial Services Act, IFSA. Capital Market and Services Act, CMSA. Labuan Financial Services and Security, LFSSA. Labuan Islamic Financial Services and Securities, LIFSSA. Development Financial Institutions, DFI. So all these are the regulated acts, yeah, those who are registered under this act, licensed under this act, falls under the category of taxable person, item 3, yeah, regulated service provider, financial service provider. So the financial activities that is subject to service tax rules, examples is commercial banking and investment banking activities, insurance, finance and reinsurance business, operations of payment system, insurance broking, money broking, financial advisory activities, dealing in securities and derivatives, fund management, advising on corporate finance, insurance broking, providing investment advice on securities and derivatives, financial planning, trustees of unit trust schemes and private retirement schemes. So all these are the financial activities, and the fees, the commission that has been imposed on these financial services will then be subject to service tax. All right. So for those non-regulated, as I mentioned earlier, you have two items, two categories of taxable person. One is regulated under the Act. One is not a non-regulated service provider. Yeah. So typically provided by non-banks or non-financial institutions, specific financial services. Yeah. So under the factoring, for example, the buy debt at discounted price. Yeah. Financial lease. So financial lease was being excluded under the financial and rental under group K. It is taxable under group H. That is why we exclude that in group K. So financial lease will fall under non-regulated under this group H. Yeah, finance to purchase an asset, trade financing, funding to pay for goods and services, this credit facility and Sharia financing, cooperatives such as and also such as BNPL, buy now and pay later. So during the few days or during the end of June before we entering into 1st July, we receive a lot of issues, yeah, under this financial financial services, yeah, financial fee-based services, because they thought that in the social media, yeah, we received comments saying that after this, any charges to ATM will charge you service tax, any remittance, so on. But there are actually a misleading informations. The one that we wanted to tax is basically not the basic financial activities. Yeah. So in my slides, I have listed a list of non-taxable services. Yeah, under the new expansion scope, financial services. For example, we have this basic financial services that is relating to your saving accounts, your current account, any withdrawal, deposit, transmissions, payment to transfer, anything. If you go to the counter and you make payment to the bills payment and so on. So all these basic transactions are not taxable. All right. Issuance of debit card also not taxable. Basic transaction over the counter, basic transaction using the ATM machines, printing of statement accounts also not subject to service tax. Financial services related to goods, land, or matters outside Malaysia, but excluding our remittance. Yeah, our remittance are taxable, but then anything that in relation to goods, land, or matters outside Malaysia is not taxable. This is a very general exclusion that we have for service tax. Direct related to the goods delivered from the last exit point in Malaysia to any destination outside Malaysia. So any financial services that is directly related to the goods delivered from the last exit point in Malaysia. So where is the last exit point? It is similar to logistics services. So when the goods are being moved from last exit point in Malaysia to a place outside Malaysia. Yeah. All right. We also have this brokerage or underwriting services related to medical insurance, medical takaful covered by individual. It is also not subject to service tax. Yeah. Brokerage or underwriting services related to life insurance or family takaful. We have individual and we also have family. It is also not subject to service tax. Yeah. Fee for credit card and charge card. This is because we already covered under item 1 for group H. Yeah. We have credit card and charge card, issuance of credit card and charge card, RM35 per card per year. So that's why we exclude here under item 3 and 4. Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next expansion scope that we have. Yeah, we have healthcare services. Okay, when we talk about healthcare services, this is also another issue. Why we tax on healthcare services? Alright, please take note. Yeah, before you jump into conclusions, I would like to emphasize here that this healthcare services is only taxable to non-citizens of Malaysia. Alright, this is if you look into Group I. This is the table that you can find in our regulations, service tax regulations under Group I. We have taxable person. Column 1, we have taxable services. Column 2, and we have taxable. We have total of value taxable services in column 3. So when you read under the taxable services in column 2, it only stated that provisions of healthcare services. It doesn't state it elsewhere in the Group I itself, saying that this is only applicable to non-citizens of Malaysia. But since it is an exemption, we stated that particular details in the passport order, person exempted from payment of tax order. So that's why you cannot find it here. But please take note that this healthcare services is only applicable, chargeable to the non-citizens of Malaysia, those who do not have a blue IC card. So those who married to a foreigner or married to an international woman or international husband, yeah, that husband and that your husband, your spouse, will then when they acquire this private healthcare services, they will have to pay service tax. All right. Okay. And the value of threshold for these healthcare services is 1.5 million for cumulative of 12 months. So in order for you to calculate the value of threshold, you have to combine the total of sales that you have for these healthcare services to Malaysian and to non-Malaysian, yeah, to citizens and to non-citizens of Malaysia, because of the exemption term that I explained just now. Exclusion means not subject to service tax, totally out of the scope, but exemption means it is taxable, but it has been given a tax exemption. All right, so the one that is not subject to service tax is healthcare services provided by government, since we only tax on private healthcare services, not the government one. So when you go to hospital Kuala Lumpur, when you go to hospital, Shah Alam, it will still not charge you service tax, yeah, to the non-citizens of Malaysia. All right, so this is exemption from payment of service tax is to those Malaysian citizen that has a valid blue IC card, yeah, that has a IC card, blue IC card. So as I mentioned earlier, under Group I, we have add on 3 new category of person, which is item 14, 15, and 16. So item 14 is private healthcare services, all right? So any person who operates or provide a private healthcare facility registered or licensed under the Private Healthcare Facilities and Services Act 1998 exclude. So in the column 1 itself, there has been stating an exclusion, yeah, to any university or university college that is registered under the University and University College Act, also the University Technology Mara Act, who operates and provide healthcare facility services. So this exclusion is to be granted to this university college, university hospital, and also to this University Technology that was governed under the Act of 30 and Act 173. Okay? And also, this University Malaya Specialist Center, when you go to Pusat Perubatan Universiti Malaya, or University Malaya, University Malaya UMSC. UMSC is the private wing lah, yeah. Alright. University Malaya Medical Center, UMMC, is the government wing. But when you go to private wing, UMSC, University Malaya Specialist Center, those non-citizens will be charged this service tax. Okay, so we noted that the government hospital also, they have this private wing, right? So when you want extra attention, when you want to expedite the queue, when you want special care, you wanted to have extra. If you wanted to have extra, then you go to the private wing. All right. So this private wing for University Malaya, for UKM, for University Technology Mara, and also for the International Islamic University of Malaysia is being excluded. All right, it is not in the scope. It is out of the scope. It is not subject to service tax. Okay. So when we talk about private healthcare facilities, this is the terminology. So what is the private healthcare terminology? Private healthcare facilities under the Section 2 of Private Healthcare Facilities and Services Act 1998. Says that any premises other than government healthcare facilities. So it means private lah, yeah. So private healthcare facilities other than government healthcare facility used or intended to be used, yeah, for the provisions of healthcare services for or health-related services, such as a private hospital, hospice, ambulatory care center, nursing home, maternity home, psychiatric hospital, psychiatric nursing home, community mental health center, hemodialysis center, medical clinic, dental clinic, and such other healthcare or health-related premises. This is as what being stated under the Section 2 of the Act. Yeah. So this is the example of the facilities of private healthcare that is. When you exceed the threshold, you are mandatory to be registered with customs under these provisions of services, healthcare services. Yeah. All right. As I said there just now, these healthcare services, whether it is item 14, 15, or 16, yeah, whether it is a private healthcare services, whether it is a TCM, traditional complementary medicine, and also the allied health. So all these 3 healthcare services is only applicable to non-Malaysian, yeah, non-citizens of Malaysia. So who are the non-citizens of Malaysia? The foreigners. Yeah, you own a passport, then you acquired healthcare services, private healthcare services in Malaysia, you are going to be charged. Yeah, the permanent resident that holds a MyPR card, a temporary resident that holds a MyCAS, KAS, and also the birth certificates of non-citizens, yeah, the baby, the newborn baby, or the child that do not have MyPR yet, but they hold a birth certificate of non-citizen. When this baby acquired private healthcare services, then it will be subject to service tax. Okay. All right. This is the examples of services that is not subject to service tax. Yeah, the hearing accessory. So basically, this is actually the provisions of goods. Yeah, under the service tax, we are not charging you service tax on selling of goods. Okay, because we have already Sales Tax Act. Sales Tax Act is actually to impose tax on the provisions of goods, selling of goods or manufacturing of goods. But for services, we only tax on taxable services, provisions of services to clients. So that when that provisions of taxable services is prescribed as taxable services, therefore it is subject to service tax, unless it is stated in the column 2 of taxable services. For example, Group A, accommodation. So in Group A, accommodation, under the column 2 of taxable services, the last item talks about the provisions of goods such as the tobacco product and also the beverages. So selling of cigarette in hotel accommodation will be subject to service tax. Selling of Coca-Cola, any drinks, liquor or not, will be subject to service tax in accommodation, because in the column 2 of Group A, accommodation, it already stated that the provisions of goods are taxable, all right, but not in Group H, item 14, 15 and 16, because it's already stated that provisions of healthcare services. Okay, so therefore only the healthcare services are taxable, and exclude all these items, goods such as the hearing aid, the binder, the walker, the arm sling, the collar, the spine brace, and all this. So this is an example of non-taxable services, not subject to services when you as a service provider registered, for you are at a private hospital, selling all these items to your client, and it will not be subject to service tax. All right. Calculation of threshold. The value of healthcare services provided to Malaysian and non-citizens of Malaysia because of the exemption and exclusion term just now. So since it is an exemption to the Malaysian citizen, therefore you have to calculate in the value services, healthcare services chargeable to Malaysian and non-Malaysian citizens, in order for you to determine the mandatory the liability of becoming a registrant under the service tax, and also you need to declare the value of exemption in your SST02 account. Sorry, in your SST02 return. Threshold is 1.5 million for cumulative of 12 months. All right, so let's move on to the next category of person, which is the TCM, traditional and complementary medicine. So this is a brief history of TCM. TCM was actually a taxable services since from the very beginning, 1st September 2018. But then last year February or March, Minister of Finance has been excluded TCM as non-taxable services, all right, and also to provide an exemption. An exemption. No more. TCM is no longer a prescribed taxable services, but in the year 2025, TCM has made a comeback, but only the provisions to non-citizens of Malaysia are taxable. So this TCM operator, it must be registered under the private healthcare facilities and services. This TCM, they have their own act. If I'm mistaken, yes. Practitioner under the Act of 775, all right. So this TCM under the Act of 775, those who are licensed and registered under 775, it is a taxable person under the item 15, and the provisions of non-citizens of Malaysia is taxable. All right. So under the Act of 775, the term of TCM, it's actually a form of health-related practices designed to prevent, treat or manage ailment or illness, or preserve the mental or physical well-being of an individual, and including practices such as traditional Malay medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, traditional Indian medicine, Islamic medical practice, homeopathy, and complementary therapies, excluding medical and dental practices. All right. These are the meanings of TCM, and we know that this is the list of what are the services that is actually provided by this TCM operator. So the examples are the acupuncture, the Ayurveda, homeopathy, Chinese medicine, chiropractic, osteopathy. So when you go to have when you go for this chiropractic activities, the chiropractic medicine treatment, then that is actually falls under the services of TCM, traditional complementary medicine, under the Act of 775. Okay, but when you become a registered person under this, when you are the provider of this act, the TCM services, you become a registered person, but the charges is only, service tax is only chargeable to the provisions of TCM services to non-citizens of Malaysia. Okay, classifications of TCM private services, okay, either to Group I, yeah. So we have Group I, those who are registered practitioner under the Act of 775, either the operator or premise provider or employee is registered, or Group C, the operator, vendor, employees are not registered under the Act of 775. So if you have this under wellness center, so wellness is also taxable under Group C. So those who are not licensed or registered under the Act of 775, yeah, that it falls under Group C when you provide similar services to your clients, okay? All right, allied health. So this is the last item in Group I, yeah, Group I. So we have on 3 items. One is private healthcare services. So all these MRI, all these operation procedures, medical services offered by this hospital, private hospital, to non-citizens of Malaysia are taxable. Next, we have item 15, provisions of chiropractic, provisions of homeopathy, Ayurveda, all these traditional complementary medicines are taxable to the non-citizens of Malaysia. And the last but not least, under health services is on allied health related services. So provisions of allied health, excluding the private healthcare facilities under the item 14 just now, is excluded. So the rest will fall under item 16. The one that is registered under the Act of 1998, private healthcare facilities will be excluded, will not be subject to under item 16, but will be under item 14. Yeah. All right. This is an example of the allied health services: the ideology, the dietetics, entomology, physiotherapy, all these nutrition. So we know that, right? When you go to the hospital, you required by the doctor to have this nutrition because you are underweight and overweight and so on. So all these are allied health services. So these allied health services are provided, if it is provided by the hospital itself, then it falls under item 14. All right. If it is provided by a third party, yeah, then it will be subject to service tax under item 16. You are the taxable person because you are not the one that is registered under the Act of 1988. So therefore, you falls under item 16. Okay. And the tax rate for health services is 6%. Now we have financial fee based just now 8%. Health is at the rate of 6%. All right. So let's move on to rental or lease services. So I believe this is the most famous group, okay, rental and construction. So these two services are most common services that we receive a lot of queries on. Yeah. Okay. So Group K, rental or lease. So it is a new prescribed group, a new prescribed services. So before this, any kind of rental or lease are not subject to service tax. Yeah. Provisions of any rental or leasing services activity are not taxable. But starting 1st July onwards, any kind of rental, any kind of leasing will be subject to service tax. Okay, please apologize my typo here. It is not 1,000, it is 1 million. So if we put 100,000, okay, then RMCD will be backfire. All right. Okay, similar to other groups, Group K, we also have 3 columns, columns 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3, yeah? Column 1 talks about the taxable person, any person who provides rental or leasing services. Rental or leasing services. It doesn't tie to any act, it doesn't tie to any regulations, yeah? It just purely any person who provides rental or leasing services. And the taxable services under this column 2 is provisions of all types of rental or lease of tangible asset, yeah? Except. So there is also an exclusion for rental of leasing of accommodations. House rental is not subject to service tax. Rental or leasing of reading materials is also not subject to service tax. Rental or lease of tangible assets located outside Malaysia. So since your asset is located outside Malaysia, then it is not subject to service tax. Yeah. For leasing and tangible assets through a financial lease, this is already covered under Group H just now. And the value of taxable services is 1 million for cumulative of 12 months. So when we talk about rental or lease. So it is a granting the right of permission to use tangible asset from one party to another party for a certain period through an agreement either in writing or verbally. Yeah. So basically, this is a taxable person, taxable services. Okay, if I forgot to tell you, all right, under the Group K itself, there is a preamble for Group K. Yeah, for the purpose of Group K, the housing accommodation referred to in column 2 shall include a small office, home office, so home, service apartment, service condominium, service suite, or residential suite. Okay, so all this, because when we talk about exclusions, we say that exclusion is given for rental or leasing of housing accommodation. So that accommodation is also referred to SOHO. That accommodation is also referred to apartment, service condo, and service or residential suite. Yeah. Okay, so we know already that under column 2 we talks about all provisions of rental or lease are taxable except housing accommodation, reading materials, tangible assets outside Malaysia, and also financial lease. Yeah, all right. So that is the scoping of taxable services for rental and lease. Let's move on to the next scope, which is the construction work services. So as I mentioned earlier, there are two famous newly taxable services that was named as rental and lease and construction. So construction is also another taxable services that has been prescribed as a new taxable services starting 1st July 2025. Yeah. Right, there are also a preamble for this construction for the purpose of Group L. The residential building and public facility related to the residential building referred to in column 2 shall not include a residential building and public facility related to the residential building approved for the purpose of mixed development by local authority. Okay, so it means residential building shall not include in the mixed development. So if mixed development, yeah, so when you as a contractor, you as a developer develop a project of a mixed development project consists of residential and commercial. So that particular project will be taxable for the whole amount. Okay, because the exclusion is only given to the residential building and public facility related to the residential building. And the value of threshold for construction works is 1.5 million. Yeah, tax rate is 6%. Okay, when we wanted to look into this scoping, the impositions of scope, yeah, imposition of tax in that particular industry. First, we understand the industry overview. Yeah? So the key players that we usually have in these construction services is the developer or the property owner. So this property owner or developer will acquire the main-con, yeah, the main-con to build that particular projects, and the main-con will obviously subcon hire another subcontractor and also professionals in order for them to build a project. Yeah. So basically, this property owner, a developer, acquired the property for the development. Yeah, upon contractors or main-con to construct the building, so main-con will appoint subcon and also professional services. So these professional services consist of the engineer. So you need an engineer to calculate the materials for that particular structure. Yeah, you need the surveyor to survey on the land and so on. The interior design, the architect, yeah, to come up with a design to build that particular projects. Mechanical and electrical engineer. So all these professionals are actually a taxable services already. So prior to 1st July, construction is not a taxable services, but the professional services are taxable. So before this, provisions of taxable services by the professionals to the main-con are taxable. They have charged the main-con, and main-con have paid service tax. All right, but in this time around, these layers consist main-con, main-con or the property. Main-con will charge this property or developer for the provisions of building the constructions, construct the buildings, yeah, to build the buildings, yeah, basically. Right, taxable person. Any person who provide construction works, work services are taxable person. Okay, we did not tie with CIDB Act and so on, but we said that any person who provide construction works services are taxable. Okay, and the provisions of taxable services would be provisions of any construction works services exclude the construction of residential and public facility related to residential. So in our regulations, Service Tax Regulation 2018 under Regulation 2, we include these definitions of constructions. When we talk about construction, so what is construction? Building a pen or any kind of activities. How do you define that kind of activities falls under construction? So that's why we come up with this definition. Construction work means the construction, extension, installation, repair, renewal, removal, renovation, alteration, dismantling, demolition, or of a facility maintenance in the construction works periods are taxable under constructions. Okay, are a construction work. That's what it means by the construction work. Okay, so it means any construction work on any building, erections, edifice, structure, wall, fence, chimney, whether constructed wholly or partly above or below ground level, falls under the construction scope. Any construction work on any road, harbour works, railway, cableway, canal, aerodrome, any drainage, irrigation or river control works, any electrical, mechanical, petrochemical, telecommunication works, or any gas work or water works, or any bridge, viaduct, dam, reservoir, earthworks, pipeline, sewer, and so on. All these are construction works. So which includes any works on which an important and integral part of or a preparatory of a tool or temporary for the work specified in items A to F. So any preparatory or temporary works in relation to item A to F is also falls under construction works. And any construction works for the mixed development is taxable. It's basically falls under these definitions of construction, and it is taxable. Right, so whatever that we have said just now, it has been illustrated here. So any railway track, any port, any dam, bridges, jetties, road, highways, tunnel, airport, all these constructions of these items are taxable under constructions. So before constructions become a taxable services in 1st July, we have argument. We have a grey area whether it is falls under maintenance and repair or whether it is constructions. Before that, whether renovations is part of maintenance and repair. So as I mentioned earlier, last year in the month of March, 1st March onwards, we have broadened the scope of maintenance and repair. So any kind of repairing and maintenance activities are subject to service tax. But those days we have a lot of issues raised on these provisions of renovations. Are there falls under this maintenance and repair? So maintenance and repair is actually to repair or to maintain whatever that has been already in the structure, whatever that has been in place. But for renovation, when you change from a round shape to a square shape, so that is a renovation, enhancement. So all that kind of activity that is not falls under maintenance and repair. Maintenance and repair is just to maintain and to repair the original conditions. But for this renovation, it is not taxable under maintenance and repair, and therefore it will, under the constructions, it fulfill the definitions of constructions. Renovation is actually not a taxable services before 1st July, but nowadays, starting 1st July onwards, renovations are taxable under construction works. Okay, so it must not, it will not be overlapping to each other, because we also have already exclude these construction works in the maintenance and repair. So any provisions of maintenance and repair during the construction work, during the construction work will be falls under construction, and it will not falls under maintenance and repair services. Okay, group G, because they carry different tax rate, and they carry two different groups. Maintenance and repair are at the rate of 8% in Group G, but constructions is at the rate of 6% in Group L. Yeah. Okay, this is subject to service tax, mixed residential building, yeah, and public facility related to residential building approved for the purpose of mixed development by local authority. Okay, and also not subject to service tax is residential and public related to the residential building, for example, the playground, the road, yeah, public facility, the clubhouse for that particular residential, then will not subject to service tax. All right, let's move on to the last category, last group of a new prescribed taxable services. Yes, we have these education services. All right, education, we have another 3 category of taxable person. Just now we have finance, we have 2 category of taxable persons, financial fee base for regulated and non-regulated. Next we have, after finance, next we have this health, yeah, health we have another 3 category of taxable person. Finance we have 2, health we have 3. So under health we have any provisions of healthcare services, private hospitals, private clinics. We have this TCM, and we also have this allied health, dietitian, nutrition. All these are taxable to non-citizens of Malaysia. Next we have this rental and lease, yeah, rental or lease. Rental or lease also a prescribed taxable services. Any person providing rental or lease services, yeah, are taxable. And next we have this constructions, and last but not least we have education. So yes, education, private educations are taxable nowadays. Okay, let's take a look on the taxable, similar to previous group M education. Also we have 3 columns. Column 1 refer to the taxable person, column 2 refer to the taxable services, and column 3 refer to the tax value of taxable services. So in column 3, in group M, for your information, we do not have any prescribed threshold. Okay, the threshold are stated as nil. All right, so since there's no threshold, how do you determine whether you are mandatory to be registered or not? So this is the tricky part. Okay, not so tricky. All right, the tax rate for education is 6%. Okay. All right, let's take a look one by one. Who is a taxable person and what are the taxable services? How you determine whether you are mandatory to be registered or not? Okay, so private educational institution, item 1, first taxable person in group M. So any private educational institution registered under the Education Act 1996 exclude special school and a language center. Okay, so the provisions of preschool, the primary school, lower secondary, upper secondary, post-secondary education services, which imposes fees exceeding 60,000 per student for each academic year, are taxable. So since we do not have any thresholds prescribed for these services, Group M, private educational services, we know that when you are providing a course fee that values 60,000 per student for each academic year, yeah, so you are actually providing taxable services. Once you provide the taxable services, you have to mandatorily register with RMCD. That's how you read it, since you do not have any threshold set to it. So the liability on registration, section 12 is not applicable to you. Once you provide taxable services, yes, you are mandatory to be registered with RMCD. Yeah, so there is no exclusions given to this private educational institution, but I believe there is an exemption be given to this private educational institution when you are providing such services, the provisions of education services to OKU, to a person who holds a valid OKU card, then it is not subject to service. It is being given an exemption under the PEF Port Order. So don't worry so much. Just after the break, I am going to share with you the slides on exemption, the topic on exemptions. Yeah. Alright, so basically these are the taxable person, the private kindergarten. So when you are a young parents that have a children, a baby to be sent to this private kindergarten, yeah, Smart Reader Kids, Brainy Bunch, Genius Aula, so name it. Any private kindergarten that is registered under the Act of 1986, yeah, the Education Act 1986, those are the taxable person. And if you are providing the cost fee of 60,000 per student per academic year. So your academic year is actually referred to the 12 months of the academic year. Basically, for these private schools, usually they have this academic year from July to June, July 2025 to June 2026. So that is your academic year. So in that academic year, if you are offering a course fee of RM 60,000 and more for per student, means you are providing taxable services. Okay. All right. The private academic primary or secondary school, religious school, secondary, private religious primary and secondary school, international school, the expat school, Chinese private secondary school, tuition center. So those are the taxable person under the Act. And if you provide education services to this student, that is more than 60,000 per academic year, that it will be subject to service tax. You are mandatory to be registered with customs. Okay. Right, the provisions of taxable services, provisions of taxable services would be the preschool, the primary school, the lower secondary, the upper secondary, post-secondary, any charges, any charges by the school, from the tuition fees, the registration fees, the admission fees. So all this that falls under the cost of 60,000 per student for each academic year will be subject to service tax. The facilities and teaching aid tools charges are taxable, but not the selling of goods. Not the selling of goods. We have come up with a service tax policy to give a tax exemption on these provisions of goods, such as when you are selling books, when you're selling uniforms, when you are also charged on accommodation, when you charge on transportation, when you charge on boarding, the accommodations, and so on. So all this has been given a tax exemption. The only the thing that has been stated in my slides, the charges, lab charges, charges to use the facilities. So that is taxable. All right, the charges, not the selling of the goods. Selling of the goods are not taxable. And also the co-curricular charges also taxable under this 60,000, inside this 60,000 fees, school fees, say education services fee. All right. So next, let's move on to the next category of taxable person, the higher institution. So please take note, item 1 is the scoping of taxable services are different to item 2. Item 1, tax is chargeable to Malaysian and non-Malaysian. All right. Since you are offering more than 60,000 courses, the fee cost, that will be subject to service tax whether or not you hold a valid blue IC card. Okay, but for item 2, higher institution, higher institution, provisions of higher education institution is actually chargeable to the non-citizens of Malaysia only. Okay, so if you are a school, or if you are a higher institutions that is registered under the University and University College Act 1971, or a private higher education institution registered under the Private Higher Education Institutions Act 1996, or higher education or institution registered under the Education Act 1996, are those a taxable person. Those are taxable person. And if you provide the any your education services to non-citizens of Malaysia, you are mandatory to register with customs already. Okay, that's what it means, because the provisions of higher institutions is only applicable, is only chargeable to the non-citizens of Malaysia. Okay, if you hold a blue IC card, means you are not subject to service tax. But if you are someone that holds a MyPR, MyCAS, any temporary visas, student visas, any other than blue IC card, other than blue IC card, will then be subject to service tax. For the educations, for the acquisitions of higher institutions in Malaysia, education institutions in Malaysia. All right. So usually those the taxable person will be the public university, government university. For example, we have University Malaya, we have UKM, we have UIA, and so on. So all these university, if they provide even to even one student or foreign student, to non-citizens of Malaysia. So this university will be taxable. This university are providing taxable services. This university need to be registered with customs. Okay. Same goes to polytechnic. Polytechnic also, if you provide taxable services, the education services to non-citizens of Malaysia, you are also mandatory to be registered. Community college, yeah. So all these college institution that offers a lifelong learning education to individuals from walks of life, ages, preparing them for the world of work, to the world of work, yeah. So all these are also subject to service tax. Those are the taxable person that provide the education service, the higher education services to the students. So the taxable services will be the provisions of services relating to education to non-citizens of Malaysia. So if you are a college community just now provide to students that is a foreign student, non-citizens of Malaysia, then you are actually providing taxable services and you are mandatory to be registered with customs. Okay, so all the charges by the education, the higher education or the taxable person, such as the tuition fee, the registration fee, the admission fee, any charging of facilities and teaching aids is taxable, and also the co-curricular charges are also taxable. Yeah. Okay, the last category of taxable person in Group M. So Group M we have Group M is totally a new group. And Group M we have three categories of taxable person. First we have the school, yeah, the private school. Yeah, private school is taxable to Malaysian and non-Malaysian. Okay, citizens to non-citizens. Also both. The private school is applicable to both if you are offering a course more than 60,000 per student per academic year. Item 2 talks about the higher education, which means that your diploma, your degree. So all these, when you are when you are a service provider, you are the higher education institution that provides the education to the non-citizens of Malaysia, then you are a taxable person and providing taxable services mandatory to be registered. Higher education only applicable to non-citizens of Malaysia. And last but not least, we have this language center. Yeah, so this language center is actually registered under the Education Act 1996. Yeah, so language center is registered under Education Act 1996. That is why we exclude language center in item 1 just now, because language center has their own item in item 3. Yeah, standalone item under item 3. And the provisions that relating to education to non-citizens of Malaysia are taxable. Okay, so this language center, when they provide taxable services, language courses or examination services to non-citizens of Malaysia, will be subject to service tax. Yeah, there is also no exclusion is being given under these items. Yeah. All right. Language center offers a variety of language courses focusing on language and communication skills for all ages. So all these are subject to service tax. All right, so let's move on. We have already covered the expansion scope. We have total of 5 industries. Financial, we have another 2. Health services, we have another 3 category of taxable person. We have rental and lease, construction, and we have education, another 3 category of taxable person. All right, so let's move on to the amendment, the latest update that we made into our regulations in the year 2025 and effective 1st July 2025. All right. So there are various amendments that have been made into the first schedule. All right. In Group A, for example, in column 2, column 2 talks about the taxable services. So in column 2, we have exclude provisions of taxable services in other groups. So column 2 talks about taxable services. Yeah. In item B for accommodation, we said that provisions of other taxable services in other group are taxable, exclude item 14 in Group I. So that is the amendment to exclude item 14 in Group I. So if you are a hotel, also provide health services. Yeah, for example, you provide MRI scanning, you provide CT scan, or you provide any services under this group item 14, the private healthcare services, you've been excluded under Group A. Okay, you must be someone that is registered under the Act of Private and Healthcare Services 1998. Then only you have your own sub item, yeah, that standalone item, you have to be registered under this act. Then only you are you are mandatory to be registered add on the type of taxable services in Group I. So that's what it means, yeah. So we have exclude item 14 in Group A. Okay, we also exclude item 14 in item C. Yeah, for your information, for Group A and Group B. Yeah, Group A and Group B. Aside from provisions of taxable services in other group, any services under the control of the service provider. For example, hair salon is not a taxable service. It's not a prescribed taxable services. But if a hotel have a hair salon or hair boutique in a KLCC shopping mall, so that hair salon will be subject to service tax. That's what it means under item C of column 2 of Group A. Yeah, provisions of other services within the accommodation premises or area or place of business under the control of the service provider. And under this item, we also make an amendment to exclude item 14, the private healthcare services in Group I. Okay, so if you are a hotel, you provide any other services are taxable, exclude. But when you are providing healthcare services, it is not subject to service tax. Okay, similar amendment that we made into Group B. Group B also has similar taxable services in Group A. Yeah, Group B is meant for F&B. Yeah, if you are a person operating a restaurant, if you are a person providing catering services, or if you are a person operating a food court. So you are the taxable person under Group B. Okay, so under the Group B, column 2 of taxable services, any provisions of taxable services in other groups are also taxable. So, for example, if you are a restaurant and you are also providing IT services, you have an IT division in your groups in your restaurant, or if you also provide cleaning services for a commercial building. So that cleaning services and that IT services automatically will be taxable under item B. Yeah, of the group, item B in column 2 of Group B. And we made an amendment to exclude item 14. So if Group B also provide healthcare services, then it will be not subject to service tax under Group B. Okay. Alright, item C in Group B, we are still with Group B, column 2 of Group B. Provisions of any other services are also taxable. So, for example, if Group B, a restaurant, also have an amusement park, for example, Sunway Lagoon, yeah, we know that the food court or the cafeteria in Sunway Lagoon are taxable, registered under Group B because they provide food and beverages, and at the same time, automatically under item C, that the entrance to the Sunway Lagoon water park, Sunway Lagoon theme park will be subject to service tax under item C of column 2 in Group B. Okay, provisions of any other services. Any other services means are not the prescribed one. Okay. Right, and the amendment that we made also is to exclude item 14 of Group I. The provisions of private healthcare services, yeah? Alright, next amendment that we made into Group C, this is also to remove health services from Group C, since we already have standalone items for healthcare services. That is, healthcare services will be covered under item 14, 15, and 16. Those who are licensed and registered under the Healthcare Facilities Act 1988. Yeah. So this is to amend the title of Group C itself. Only left with Wellness Center. Yeah. Before this, we have Health and Wellness Center, but now we only left with Wellness Center. And we remove all this. The exclusions for persons operating a health and wellness center to be in item 14 of Group I. Yeah. Okay. In column 2 of Group C, provisions of any other taxable services in Group in this schedule, but to exclude item 14. So if you are a person under item Group C, when you are also providing health services, then you will not be subject to charge service tax. Okay, it has been excluded. Sorry, and also item and also Group D. Yeah, Group D also provisions of all services within the club are taxable, and to exclude. Okay, all right. Okay, another reminder. Point speaker, please slow down. All right. I listen to you. Sorry, because I a bit fast. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next amendment in Group D, column 2. Yeah. Provisions of all services within the private club. So any provisions. This is taxable services in column 2. Column 2 refer to the private club. Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, under Group D, private club, any services in the club will be taxable under these provisions of item A in column 2. And the amendment is to exclude provisions of health services, healthcare services under item 14. If the private club also providing the healthcare services in item 14, then it will be not subject to service tax. Okay. Alright, Group E, column 2. Provisions of any other taxable service specified in other groups. So for your information, Group A until Group E. A, accommodation. B, F&B. C, all the clubs, nightclubs, wellness and so on. Karaoke center. Group D for private club, and Group E for golf. Yeah. So all these services, all these type of group taxable services are actually have a similar taxable services in column 2, because they have any other provisions of any other taxable services in other groups are taxable, and any provisions of services in the premise or under the control of the service provider are also taxable. It means for Group E, for Group A and B is same, but for C, D and E, any provisions in that premise are taxable. The one that has not been prescribed as taxable services, for example, the hair salon. The hair salon are not prescribed taxable services, but if you have a hair salon in the golf club, if you have a hair salon in the private club, or if you have the hair salon in the karaoke center, so that services within or in your establishment will then be subject to service tax. Okay, but not to later group. For example, Group H. Yes, starting Group H until Group M. Group H we have finance. Next we have Group I, others. Then we have Group G for professional. Next we have Group K for rental. We have Group L for constructions. We have Group M for education. So all these groups, Group H until Group M, the taxable services in column 2 are only referred to one services. That is the provisions of that particular industry itself. For example, if rental, only on rental are taxable. If cleaning, only on cleaning services are taxable. If the company also have any other services, then it will be calculated separately. Okay, but unlike this group, the first few groups, Group A until Group E, Group A until Group E, they have various taxable services. So these various taxable services, please check accurately, please check correctly whether you are actually imposing a tax correctly or not, because all these other taxable services, you have to calculate, you have to charge when you become a registered person under this category of groups. Okay, so that is why in Group A until Group E, we have a similar amendment, which is to exclude the provisions of item 14 in Group I, the healthcare services, the provisions of healthcare services, the private healthcare services. All right, let's move on to item C. Still in Group E, there's no Group B, any provisions of any taxable services from other groups. And groups item C, provisions of any other services within the golf club or golf driving range. Also to exclude the provisions of healthcare services, under item 14 of Group I. Okay, in Group G. So let's move on to the Group G. Group G also we have made an amendment. Under the Group G, in column 2 for digital services, item L, digital services, provisions of digital services, this is typo, this is typo, not the golf. Provisions of digital services, including provisions of electronic medium that allow the suppliers to provide supplies to customer or transaction for provisions of digital services on behalf of any person, exclude provisions of such services in relation to matters outside Malaysia, and also to exclude range except in relation to item 3 of column 1 of group H. Group H talks about the financial fee base. Item 3 for regulated person. Item 3, group H refer to the financial fee base. Any financial fee base, financial digital services relating to financial services specified in item sub-item A, column 2 is being excluded under digital but will be taxable under group H. Okay, it is not subject to digital services. Okay, maintenance and repair. So maintenance and repair under sub-item N. In the same group, group G, column 2, but item N. Item N for repair and maintenance. This is to exclude the facility maintenance in the construction works period. So any kind of repairing and maintenance services during the construction works are being excluded under maintenance and repair. It will be falls under construction. The whole bill, the whole amount will be taxable under construction. 6%. This is 8%. Alright, in group H, group H, by substituting the group H with the following items, we have changed the name from credit card and charge card to be financial services, financial group. Okay, to add on insurance services in group H. Prior to 1st March 2024, insurance is a taxable service in group I. Insurance item 1 in group I has been moved to group H. Group H of group financial services. This is where we combine all the financial services under one group. We have credit card and charge card. We have insurance. Next, the latest 2 items that we have is the financial fee base for regulated person and financial fee base for non-regulated person. So all this has been combined together in a group of group H. But for your information, we're still maintaining a brokerage services in group I. So broker on commodity, broker on assets, broker on anything aside than financial. So any brokerage fee are still taxable under group I, but brokerage on financial will falls under financial fee base. Okay, item 7, group I in column 2. So we delete, we remove or we delete hire and drive car, hire and drive services in item 7, group I. We have removed this. Now hire and drive falls on automatically will be falls under rental or lease. Rental or lease, but you have to, if you are a taxable person under hire and drive, you are still providing this leasing on car services, then you have to change your taxable services information in your My SST account by adding in the item under group K, rental or lease. So hire and drive are now no longer in group I, but hire and drive falls under leasing and rental services, group K. Alright, in item 12, for broker. So as I mentioned earlier, so any underwriting, financial services that is already we have combined into group H. It is no longer under item group I for brokerage. Okay, this is also to exclude financial services. Brokering on financial services will be under item H. It will be not taxable under brokering, under broker. Okay, in group I, column 2, inserting new item. This is to insert, as I mentioned earlier, prior to 1st March, we only have total 10 groups, up until J, group J, logistic. But in the latest amendment, Service Extra Regulations Amendment 2025, this is where we observe an expansion scope of a new taxable services. We have added on another 5 industries, and also we have added on another 3 category of taxable group. First we have this. First we add on these items under under the healthcare services, item 14, 15, and 16. Next we add on a new category of group of rental or leasing, group K. Next, we have constructions for Group L. So this is, if you look at the service tax regulation under the first schedule, this is exactly abstracted from that particular regulations. Yeah, this is how it looks. You have this column 1, column 2, column 3, and you have this preamble for the purpose of this Group L, residential building and public facility related to residential building is not to include a residential building that falls under the mixed development. Okay, so it means mixed development that consists of residential is taxable. Okay. All right. The last amendment that we have made into the first schedule is inserting a new group of Group M education, and under Group M we have another 3 category of taxable person. Okay. We also have amended the service tax rate. Yeah. So we have completed on the slides on the service tax amendment for the service tax regulation. Now we move on into service tax amendment on the order service tax rate of tax amendment order 2024. Okay, there are not much amendment that we have made into this order, not like the regulation just now, very long list. But this for the rate of order, there are only 3 times. So we have amended 3 times. The last year is to increase the tax rate from 6 to 8%. This year also to include a few services to be part of a 6% tax rate. So before 1st of March, there's only 4 items, 4 industries, 4 taxable services are taxed at the rate of 6%. That were telecommunications, parking services, logistics services, F&B services. Okay. F&B services. So all these 4 are taxed at the rate of 6%. But starting 1st March 2024, this is where we amended the tax rate order 2025 to have the healthcare services, the healthcare services, TCM, allied health, constructions, and education to also observe 6% tax rate. Yeah. Other than that, leasing and financial fee base is at the rate of 8%. The rest, the new taxable services, are all at the rate of 6%. Okay, we have education, we have construction, we have allied health, the healthcare, private healthcare facilities. So all these are taxable at the rate of 6%. 8% will be rental and financial fee base. Okay, the one that has not been stated in the first schedule. Yeah, this is the first schedule. We have item 1 to item 13. So anything that is not listed here in the first schedule, it means it has a tax rate of 8%. Okay. So item 1 we have F&B, provisions of F&B. Item 2, provisions of non-alcoholic beverages. So alcoholic is at the rate of 8%. But if you are a restaurant selling non-alcoholic, that will be at the rate of 6%. Provisions of non-alcoholic beverages, provisions of food together with alcoholic and non-alcoholic. So if you are selling it in a menu package in a menu. So if you are a restaurant providing a menu and that menu consists of food and alcohol, that will be taxed at the rate of 6%. Provision of telecommunications, so your Maxis line, your Celcom Digi line is at the rate of 6%. Provisions of telco with subscription broadcasting, when it comes with the package, broadcasting package, also tax 6%. Parking spaces, so parking services will be at the rate of 6%. Logistics, 6%. This is all the existing taxable services, and the newly added will be the healthcare services, TCM, like health, constructions, and education. So all these, the list that has been stated in the first schedule of the tax rate order consists of 6% services. Yeah. So this is the services that have a 6% tax rate: parking, telco, logistics, F&B, education, health, and construction. All right. Transitional rules. Okay, this is very, very important, especially to the newcomers, to the new registrant of service tax. Yeah, we have these provisions under Service Tax Regulation 3A, Service Tax Regulation 2018. So if you go to the Service Tax Regulations, yeah, go to the Regulation 3A. Regulation 3A under the first schedule. Under this Regulation 3A, it talks about in the case where a new service is specified as taxable service and the provision of such service is pending after the change. Yeah? After the change means after the effective date. Okay. So before this, that services are not taxable, but after the effective date, that same services are now a prescribed taxable services. So how do you treat this? How do you give the tax treatment? So service tax shall be charged on the proportion of the services in which it is attributed to the part of the period after the date of such change. It means if your services are spanning, for example, construction, rental or lease, yeah, prior to 1st July 2025, it is not taxable, but starting 1st July onwards, it will be subject to service tax. So any charges after the change will now be subject to service tax. Alright, so let's take a look on this example. Construction work services that were 30% completed before the effective date and 70% completed after the effective date. Yeah, so 30% completed is not subject to service tax because it is provided before effective date, and the balance 70% will be subject to service tax because it is after the effective date. Alright, that is Regulation 3AB. What about 3AC? So 3AC talks about the payment, yeah. 3AB talks about the services provided before and after. But provisions of 3AC talks about the payment. So any payment received for the provisions of such services, whether or not it is before and after, that payment received will not be subject to service tax. So that's what it means here. Okay, so in the case of where a new service is specified as a taxable service and before the date of such change, any payment is received in connection with such service that will be provided on or after the date of change, no service tax shall be charged. So for example, you are when you hear that customs are doing engagement, when you hear that there's a hearsay say that construction are taxable after the change, when you hear that the rental is subject to service tax after the effective date, you immediately collect the money from your client. Okay, just to ensure that your systems are ready, and other services, your sites are ready for all these changes and so on. So when you talk to the client you prefer to pay beforehand, yeah, to pay advance. So any payment that is received for the provisions of services to be provided after the effective date, also it is not subject to service tax under these provisions. Okay, so any payment received. So first 3AB we look at the service provided, when the service is provided. But under item 3AC, we look into that when we take into consideration on the payment, yeah, if the payment is received before effective date, then the service to be provided after the effective date will not be subject to service tax. Okay, so this is an example. Construction services that are fully provided after the effective date, but for which invoicings and payment were made before the effective date are not subject to service tax. So invoice issued. So please don't look at the invoices. Please don't look at the invoices. We only take into consideration on the service provided and also on the payment. Yeah. So if service provided before, then it is not subject to service tax. Payment that is received before for the services to be after, then still not subject to service tax. Okay. So even though invoice is issued in the month of April 2025, payment received in the month of May, and services to be provided in the month of August. Yeah, it means that the provisions of services in the month of August for the payment that has already been received in the month of May will not be subject to service tax under the provisions of Regulation 3A, Service Tax Regulations 2018. Okay? Alright, there's an example here. Company A has submitted the application to register service tax in July 2025 and is liable to charge service tax with effective date 1st August 2028. So this company submitted application in the month of July. So under regulation, under section 13, yeah, under section 13, we said that when you apply your registration in the month of July, the first day of the following month will be your effective date, right? So in this scenario, the effective date will be on the 1st of August. So this company has engaged in providing renovation, and the billing will be billed progressively start from July 2025. 30%, August 2025 40%, and September 2025 30%. So did the company need to charge service tax for July billing payment received from in July 2025? Okay, regulation 3AB. So when we talk about payment, then we refer to 3AB. When we talk about services, then we look at the services under 3AB, payment under 3AC. Okay, so under 3AB stated that the provisions of taxable services provided before effective date is not subject to service tax. So the provisions of 30% before effective date, it is not subject to service tax. Only the 40% and 30% in the month of August and September will be subject to service tax. Alright, and on the payment that has been received, yeah, the company has payment received in July. So this company already received payment in July, yeah, for the yes. The company need to check service tax for July billing payment received in July for 2025. Okay, so this company already received the payment in July. So in the scenario did not mention that it is a full payment or not. So we assume that this is a full payment. Yeah, full payment for until the September 2025. So under regulation 3AC, yeah, on the payment that has been received before effective date, the payment is not subject to service tax under regulation 3AC. So any payment received, so if that payment is only for 30%, or if that payment is only, or if that payment is the whole payment 100% for the services to be provided after the effective date, the same rule applies. Yeah, any payment received before effective date will not be subject to service tax. Okay, so it doesn't matter whether it is partial payment or it is a full payment for the services that is pending, or whether for that services to be provided after the effective date, then it will be not subject to service tax. Alright, so I have finished presenting the second sessions. So I know that we shall take a break at 11 a.m. but I have exceeded 10 minutes time. I overrun by 10 minutes. I'm sorry for that. We shall take a morning break and we shall come back at 11:30. Okay, thank you everyone.